Far in the frozen lands of the north, where mountains were veiled in snow and fjords slept beneath layers of mist, there was a small village. In this place lived a young man named Erik. Unlike the other men of his age, Erik was not the strongest, nor the largest. He could not match the laughter around the fire, or the thunder of their hammers striking iron. Yet Erik had something different. He was watchful. His eyes always searched the horizon. His ears caught even the faintest rustle in the forest. He lived in silence, and in that silence, he listened. One cold evening, word came to the village. Raiders from the south had begun their march. They burned villages, chained the weak, and left only ash behind. The warriors of the village sharpened their axes, raised their round shields, and prepared for war. Erik, as always, stood in the shadows. No one looked at him for strength. No one expected him to stand beside them. But that night, in his sleep, Erik dreamed. In his dream, the voices of the old gods echoed through a vast hall of darkness and fire. Their words were like thunder on stone. Move like the shadow. Strike where no eye sees. Your strength lies not in muscle, but in silence. When the dawn came, the longships were readied. The warriors laughed as Erik stepped aboard, carrying only a small knife, a bow, and the leather armor of a hunter. This one will fight the wind, they mocked. Or perhaps he will fight the silence itself. Days later, after the sea carried them through storms and mist, the raiders' camp appeared. Smoke curled from burning wood, and cries echoed across the fjord. The warriors roared into battle, their axes clashing against steel. But Erik slipped away into the forest. There, hidden among the shadows, he found the enemy's camp. Chained within were women and children, their eyes hollow with fear. Erik's heart thundered. He had no mighty axe, no shield wall to protect him, only silence and the will to act. Like a ghost, he moved through the camp. His arrows flew without sound. His blade struck swiftly. One by one, the guards fell, their cries swallowed by the night. At last, he broke the chains and freed the captives. Fear turned to hope. They followed Erik, and together they returned to the battlefield. When the raiders saw their prisoners free, terror spread through their ranks. Their courage wavered. Their lines broke. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. Blood stained the earth, yet the village stood victorious. The leader of the warriors approached Erik. He studied him in silence, then spoke. You carry the storm within you, though you never shout. From this day on, you shall be known as the silent warrior of the north. From that day forward, Erik's name spread across the fjords. He was the warrior who fought without thunder, who listened where others roared. A man who proved that courage is not always loud, and that even in silence, legends are born. But Erik's journey did not end there. Not long after, the fjords still carried whispers of his name, but Erik felt no comfort in them. The cheers of villagers, the toasts of jarls, even the songs of skalds, these were fleeting, echoes that did not soothe the restless tides within his chest. He had fought, yes. He had bled, yes. He had proven that courage could be silent, that strength could be measured not in wars, but in resolve. Yet the night sky remained the same, vast and endless, and Erik could not help but wonder. Was his path only to fight men, or was there something greater waiting beyond the horizon? In the evening, as the northern lights shimmered like rivers of fire in the sky, Erik stood on the prow of his longship. The water was calm, too calm, as though the sea itself was holding its breath. His men, loyal yet weary, sat behind him in silence. They, too, had grown tired of battles fought for others, of raids that filled bellies but left souls empty. It was then that Erik spoke, his voice low, yet carrying weight. "We have fought for gold. We have fought for glory. But what lies beyond the edge of the maps? What waits past the seas no skald dares sing of?" His words fell heavy, stirring hearts that had long been dulled by routine. For even the fiercest warriors secretly crave more than steel and mead. They crave purpose. And so, with no counsel but the stars, and no promise but uncertainty, Erik and his crew set sail into waters no oar had disturbed before. Days turned to weeks, and weeks blurred into a season. The sea tested them, as it always does those who wander too far. Storms struck without mercy, tearing sails like fragile cloth. Salt stung their eyes, hunger hollowed their cheeks, and doubt crept like frost into their bones. Many nights the men cursed their choice, cursing Erik as well. But Erik never wavered. He stood firm at the prow, his eyes fixed not on what was behind, but what lay ahead. At last, land rose from the mist like a phantom. It was not the green rolling hills of home, nor the known shores of rival clans. This land was darker, wilder, a place untouched by the sagas. Black cliffs loomed like jagged teeth. Forests whispered in tones no man knew, and in the distance, mountains towered like sleeping gods. The men trembled, but Erik's heart quickened. Here, at last, was a place where no tale had been written. Here was where legends could be born anew. They set foot upon the shore, and immediately the land seemed to resist them. The air was thick, the soil damp with secrets. Strange tracks marked the ground, neither beast nor man, but something in between. At night, eerie cries echoed through the trees, and the men clutched their axes as if they could ward off the unseen. One night, as the fire burned low, Erik dreamt. In his vision, he walked through a forest of shadows. The trees bent toward him, their branches like claws, but among them stood a figure cloaked in silver light. It was neither man nor woman, but something older, carved from the marrow of the world itself. The figure spoke without lips, its voice a current in Erik's mind. "You seek what lies beyond the songs of men. But beware, warrior, every land has its price, and every legend demands a sacrifice." Erik woke with sweat upon his brow, his hand gripping his axe. He told no one of the vision, but from that moment, his eyes never softened, not even in laughter. The days that followed tested them beyond war. They faced beasts unlike any they had known. Wolves the size of horses, whose eyes burned red in the night. Serpents that slithered from the sea, coiling around their longship as if to drag it back into the abyss. They fought, they bled, and still they pressed on. Yet it was not only the land that tested them, it was themselves. Hunger bred quarrels, fear bred mutiny. One by one, men turned against Erik, accusing him of leading them into damnation. But when the blades were raised against him, Erik stood as he always did, calm, unyielding, a storm without thunder. And in the end, even the traitors lowered their swords, for there was something in his silence that commanded more fear than rage ever could. Months passed, seasons changed, and then, when hope had withered to embers, they found it. Beyond the forests and mountains lay a valley unlike any other. Rivers of crystal water carved through meadows of wildflowers. And in the distance stood a hall of stone, vast and ancient. Its walls were etched with runes older than the gods themselves, glowing faintly as though lit from within. The men fell to their knees, struck silent by awe, but Erik stepped forward. The hall seemed to breathe, its doors opening with a groan that shook the valley. Inside, shadows stretched long, and whispers brushed against his ears. He entered alone. The hall swallowed him in silence, the air heavy with forgotten power. Along the walls, carvings told stories not of men, but of beings that walked before men giants who shaped the mountains, serpents that carved the seas, spirits that wove the very fabric of fate. At the far end stood a throne of black stone, and upon it rested a single blade. It was not like the swords of men. Its edge shimmered as if forged from moonlight itself, and its hilt bore runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Erik approached, his steps echoing in the vast chamber. As his hand closed around the hilt, the runes flared, and the whispers grew louder, swelling into a chorus that shook his very bones. Visions flooded him, worlds burning, seas rising, gods falling. And through it all, a single truth pierced him. This blade was not a gift. It was a burden, a weight meant only for those willing to bear it. He staggered, his breath ragged, but he did not let go. For in that moment, Erik understood. His journey was not about gold or glory. It was about becoming the bridge between men and the forgotten powers of the world. When he emerged from the hall, blade in hand, his men looked upon him with fear and reverence. For though he was still Erik, he was no longer merely a man. Something greater had touched him, and through him, the world would never be the same. From that day forward, the songs changed. No longer was he just Erik the Silent, Erik the Steadfast. He became Erik the Bearer, Erik the Bridge, the one who walked where men feared and returned with shadows in his eyes. And yet, deep within him, Erik knew this was not the end. The blade pulsed in his hand like a living thing, and the whispers never ceased. They spoke of storms yet to come, of battles not yet fought, of a fate that stretched far beyond the fjords. For legends do not end with silence. They carry on, growing, twisting, echoing through ages. And Erik's legend, silent, steadfast, and unyielding, had only just begun.